Well, thank you for coming today. I would like to share with you a strategy, an intervention, technique, method, whatever you would like to refer to it as, to assist us in teaching our students that have been diagnosed on the spectrum, as many of you refer to it as, and it's autism spectrum disorder, which we like to say ASD to sort of cut it down a little bit. So if you hear me refer to that acronym, that is what I am speaking of. Now, as you know, some of you, I am sure, have students this year or have in the past, and I'm almost willing to bet will in the future, have students in your classroom that have been diagnosed with ASD. I see a lot of heads nodding. Yes, of course. It is, I do not want to say growing in popularity because that is not the case. It is just that more and more children are being diagnosed, that more parents are being proactive in getting their children screened at an early age. And we, as special educators, and I'm even referring to you in the general ed classroom as special educators, because you will have some in your classroom that need you to do things for them in an individualized manner. And due to that, we have to really think outside of the box sometimes. And we have to reach out to certain resources. We need to collaborate with each other. But when we are dealing with certain diagnoses, such as ASD, we like to use techniques and methods, strategies, interventions that have been proven, that are evidence-based. And the one that I'm going to talk to you about today that I feel could help us all in the classroom, school setting, and then even help our children suffering from ASD. And I don't want to say suffering either. They are diagnosed, they are individuals, they are people just like we are. We have just been able to pinpoint what it is that they need extra assistance with. And a lot of times social deficits and behavior issues arise. And this is often due because students with ASD lack theory of mind. Theory of mind is when we understand what someone is referring to. We feel that other people have lives and that it is just not about me, and it is all about me. And sometimes we may still act that way, and we do possess theory of mind, but in some instances, children do not have theory of mind, and they just simply do not understand that there is a world outside of their world. And a lot of times people will misconcept and say that child is so self-centered or so self-focused. And in actuality, it may appear that way, but it is not because they are doing it on their own. It is just simply because they do not possess the ability to do anything other than that. So today, I would like to discuss a way to help us in addressing social issues and behavior issues. And many people are trying to figure out how to possibly tackle and develop theory of mind, and if it is even possible. And if it is not possible, there are ways that we can assist our students in becoming more social and in addressing certain issues behavior-wise. And in our classrooms, that is extremely important for us. But what we do with them in the classroom will often carry over into their daily lives and into their home settings. So I am going to spend my time talking about social stories. Some of you have probably heard about social stories, and maybe you were like me in the beginning. You didn't quite understand what that meant. Social story is a story, just like it says, a narrative, that has been written to address a certain topic. And the issues that we can use are limitless. We can go from a simple how to brush your teeth all the way to we are going to get on the bus and go on a field trip and go to the zoo. There are so many things that we can use social stories for. And so many researches and case studies and data has been analyzed in order to prove with evidence that this is a positive and effective strategy. And something else that we're all going to love is it is cost effective, meaning it costs nothing mostly. There are some pre-made stories that we could get, but oftentimes when you find them on the internet or from a resource, they are free to use for us. And we can develop our own. We can make it as individualized as we need it to be. We can put the student's name in. We can refer to things that are personal to them. And we can make them visualized. We can use pictures to help. We can use music for those that are so musically inclined to assist in this. Those of you that teach older students, you can use a social story where your child in your classroom would read it on their own. Those of us that teach the little ones, we would read it to them. And so social stories are individualized short stories. They are not long at all. They are to the point. They are basic. There are certain types of sentences that we are to be very careful of that we put in the story so that our students understand what it is we are needing from them. It helps the children to interpret information. It helps them to be able to break down situations. And often they become so full of anxiety that these stories can help them to feel more prepared, to understand the expectations that are being set for them. And that, in turn, will ease their anxiety. And they will be able to go into these activities, situations, tasks, transitions, and it would be able to flow much more smoothly for them. And without the negative behaviors that sometimes they will display. They will be able to learn to control them because they are not so full of tension that they will be able to just go with the flow if we use this intervention. It helps the children in a very wonderful way. Now, this was developed in 1991. Oh, I know. Some of you are thinking, that's when I was born. Some of us are thinking, oh, that's when we were in junior high. But Miss Carol Gray developed this intervention. So it has been around for a little while. It is still relatively new. When you go into, if you look at some of the resources that I have given you and you would like to go in and investigate on your own, which I definitely challenge you to do, then you will see that there is still even talk of more case studies to be done and more research to be done because they really are trying to decide if social stories can assist in theory of mind in helping develop that. So Carol Gray has done that. Now, social stories can be used for, we say, everyone can use them. Everyone can implement them, utilize them, and develop them. That is why this is such a versatile intervention because it is easy. It's easy to do, it's easy to maintain, and of course, as I spoke earlier, the cost. That is wonderful to us as educators, and the payoff is so tremendous. Now, there are some instances where you may not see a huge change or a positive change. There are even some cases where you may not see a change at all. But it is so worth the trouble, and it's not even that much trouble, to do in order to see if it would work for the child that you are assisting with ASD. It is very beneficial, and it is just limitless with the things that we can do. Now, on your handout, you will see that I have laid out theory of mind for you so that you can maybe understand that a little more as to what we are referring to when we are speaking of theory of mind. Sometimes you may see it when you are doing some research of your own referred to as TOM, Tom, and that is theory of mind. And I have that for you that you could read on your own. Now, the benefits, of course, that I have discussed are just tremendous. It can break down an activity in a way that I can stand and speak to the child and just feel I am doing an amazing job at teaching the procedure that I expect. And it may not do anything in the world for that child. I could put it in a simple story laid out in the question order, or in the sentence order, that has been developed by Dr. Gray, and it will begin to click. The children will be able to understand a little more clearly of, oh, that is what I am supposed to do. And if you are like me, whatever works. Let's just make it happen. And social stories have done that for me personally. I have talked to so many other professionals that it has worked for. And as you can see when you go through your research, that it is just time and time and time again. It does not matter what setting, environment, culture the child comes from. Studies have been done all over the world, Iran, UK, and all of the research data is very, very similar. And it does not matter if it is on boys or girls, what the ages are. Most of the time the age range is between ages 2 and 15 that the studies do. Some I have seen on age 16 and 17 that have even worked. So those of you in high school that are thinking this would never work for me, try it. It very well may. You can set your 15-year-old down at his desk and you can have him read a story before going into something that you feel is going to be just terrifying to that child, and it may work. It is definitely worth a shot for sure. So, while we are talking about these social stories, you may be thinking, when do I really use them? I mean, do I have to set aside a special time? Do we have a timer? You know, we are so cramped in our day to get everything in. Well, it is really up to you. You can do it anytime. You can squeeze it in any way that you see fit. It is completely at your discretion. You can use a verbal prompt if your child is to read it on his or her own. You can have a time where they know they need to come to you so that you could read the story to them. It is up to you. Here are just a few examples. Yes, I know, it is tiny, but on your handout you can see. They are so tiny on here because I have said that it is limitless with the ideas that you can come up with in order to use social stories. It can be from sharing toys in very early young children to doing their homework. It can be anything like that. It can be life skills, daily skills, hygiene. There are some wonderful ones out there, even on Teacher Pay Teachers, that have visuals with them on keeping your body clean and why it is important to take a bath. These are wonderful things to use. There's been books, and these books are, of course, short stories to help children understand how to pretend play. Once again, this is something that is challenging for our ASD students, and those of us dealing with our younger children, that is important to us. And that is because of that lack of theory of mind. They do not understand why their classmate is playing with a baby doll like it is a real baby. They do not understand why someone is using their Legos like a car. You use Legos to build with because they are logical. And stories, social stories, can help them. It can help them with manners and how to use their words. So you read the story, you can discuss it, you can act it out, model it. It can be very interactive. And as you know, I am an animated person, so yes, I do not just read my stories, I act them out. There has been one instance where that was not appropriate for that child, and of course you know your children, and you know when you can and when you should do certain things. And there are some times when certain stimuli is not appropriate. Excuse me, technical difficulty there. Now, here are just some things to take into account when you are creating your story. You need to decide, what type of learner do you have? What type of child is he? What are some of her interests? That is very important. Get to know your students before you develop this story. What skill is it that you want to address? Do not try to do more than one skill at a time. It is important that you focus on one. We do not want to overwhelm them. Our whole goal of using the social stories is to not overwhelm them. So we want to make sure that we limit that to one thing being addressed at a time. You want to be careful with your sentence structure. You want it to be simplistic. We often want to make sure that we are using words that are easy for them to understand. We do not want to have to explain what we meant by the story because that's what we are using the story for. You can decide if you are going to assess this, how you are going to determine if the social story is working or not, and how long of a time frame you are going to give you and your child in your classroom in developing the new behavior or social skill that you desire of them. Remember, simple, simple, simple. Simple sentence, simple language, simple and consistent pictures. Your pictures should not be busy. It needs to be, boom, to the point. It needs to be, if you're talking about your body is dirty, just a little picture of a little boy covered in dirt, a little cartoon character. Simple, 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 so that they understand what it is. One step per page. Do not try to do a lot at one time. Here are the structures that I was mentioning earlier. You must have a descriptive, perspective, cooperative, directive, affirmative, and then your control sentences. They are all laid out there for you on your handout. It is answering the WH questions, the where, when, why, how, these things, so that your child will understand what it is you are trying to do for them. Oops, I'm sorry. Now, we do not want to hinder the child in giving them a crutch, and that every time before we get up to go to lunch, they have to read their story. No, we want to be able to pull away, as it says, fade back. We want to be able to do that. And the way we do that is you have to decide, does this child need to read this story every day for 2 weeks going to lunch to see if the behavior changes, to see if his anxiety level lessens, or does it need to be for 4 weeks? And then we can weed it out. You decide, does it need to be every other day, once a week, until it is phased out and that child is doing their new behavior on their own. That is when it is amazing. When they come in at the beginning of the school year and they can't even exit your room for fear of going to the lunchroom, and then they go on their own and they sit the entire time and they are successful and effective in what they are doing. Not only does that build you up, but oh my, what it does for that child. It gives them such confidence in any task that they can tackle and do on their own. As I mentioned, there are some stories, and of course this is where some of your monies could go to if you wanted to buy some of these cutesy stories, and they are wonderful. There are hundreds of different kinds that have been done for us. We do not have to do them. But if you want it to be very individualized for your child, then you can just perform one on your own. I appreciate your time, I appreciate your attentiveness, and I do really hope that you take the materials that I've given you and you research on your own, and that you, if you choose so, to use this in your classroom, I really feel that you will see a positive change, that you will learn to love it and embrace it and pass it on to other people. Thank you.